Greetings, everyone, and all the fellow humans. Welcome to another episode of The Roots Matter, the show where we talk about news and politics, and they all collide on your interwebs. And I am your host that's going to be talking about all these things, but not by myself. My name is Cynthia, and let's get into it. So, guys, I am so grateful to have another guest that's going to be on the show today. I am not doing a Cynthia's Corner because I want to go ahead and get into the conversation. So, we're going to be bringing up our guest very, very soon. Just give me just one moment. I just want to go ahead and just make sure that we are seeing everybody. Let me just give a nod to the chat. Just let me know that you guys are here, that you are tuning in, all that other great stuff. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to be talking to Volcy Thoughts in a few minutes. Well, actually, we're going to be talking to Volcy Thoughts after I actually give his introduction. So let's see. So today on The Roots Matter, we're joined by Volcy Thoughts. Growing up as a Christian, he started a life changing journey when he was challenged with this statement: "You told me what you believe. You didn't tell me why you believe it." That one critique sent him down an intellectual path that he didn't realize at the time will make him passionate about only religion, not only religion, but politics, law, history, and society as a whole. He now operates a debate discussion show called Bring the Smoke from Thursdays to Sundays, challenging these same topics, and he hopes to grow even farther from there. His subject matters are about deconstruction, atheist fellowship, secular activism in the Black community, and normalizing irreligious Black people at large. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who happens to be paying attention out there in the interwebs, I love to welcome Volcy. Hey, Volcy, how you
What's
doing?
what's going on? What's going on? Hey, that was an amazing introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I'm so glad that you are here. I'm really looking forward to getting to this discussion today with you. Yeah, it's such a thing to be able to talk to a person who is like-minded and being able to get into things about deconstructing from religion, deconstructing from Christianity, and also talking about like your debate stage that you are doing, and
Mhm,
really speaking to people at large
mhm.
when it comes to the the topics that we have that are very pressing at this particular moment in time. So let's get into it. So faith.
Definitely.
All right. So okay. So let's start with this.
Mhm,
You said someone once challenged you with the question, "You told me what you believe, but not why you believe it." What
mhm.
was going through your mind when you first heard that?
I was like a deer in the headlights
Mm-hmm.
because I've never actually been challenged that way in my beliefs. What during that time, even now to today, what a lot of Christians or people within Christendom will tell you is that we are allowed to question God, we are allowed to question a few things, but there are a few fundamental things that you are actually not allowed to question. Like for example, if you don't understand a certain story, like hey, I don't understand why Job was punished, or I don't understand, why did David, why was it necessary to chop off Goliath's head? If you ask questions like that, then the answers are forthcoming. If you try to understand what's the point of prayers and everything like that, the answers are forthcoming. But once you get into more difficult things like um Noah's Ark story doesn't make any sense because where did all the water go afterwards? Then those questions are not as forthcoming. If you ask questions like, if God is all knowing, wouldn't he know what I pray for already? So what's the point of prayer? Those questions are not forthcoming. And as a matter of fact, a lot of times in our community, you'll probably get punished for acting something like that because you're not supposed to question God. So when that was starting to happen, I always pushed all those questions to the back of my head because all those questions keep bringing up. If you can't answer those questions or you don't have any evidence or any good reason to answer those questions, it then becomes of okay, why are you believing what you're believing then? Now, of course, since those questions are always suppressed and you push it to the back of your head because you're a kid, you don't want to get in trouble with your parents or any of the adults. I just for a while, or even just not even for my entire life, I never actually heard someone ask me, "Why do you actually believe this?" Other than my this is what my parents taught. This is what I thought. This is what I thought was normal with the world, and I always thought that people who don't believe that something is actually seriously wrong with them, which is something else that we were taught in the church, that people who don't believe have something seriously wrong with them, like they have like a mental issue or an emotional issue, or they're just flat out evil people. That's what we were taught. You know what I mean? So um getting challenged in that way of asking, why do you actually believe this? The first thing that I thought was, oh, because it's true, obviously, but I was in the philosophy course at that time. Simply saying it's true is not good enough. You can't write a paper simply saying it's true and turn it in. They're gonna be like, yeah, okay, you're gonna get an F for this semester, So I knew that wasn't good enough, and that's what sent me down that journey. All that was going through my head at the same time was like, wow, I've never actually thought of that. Let me actually look this up because obviously my parents won't lie to me, right? That's what I'm thinking. At least not about something this serious. They won't lie to me about it. So that's what took me down that path. Like I just never thought of it.
Well, take us back to that period,
Mhm.
Volcy. You take us back to what beliefs started unraveling during your deconstruction.
Yeah, I think is what's funny is that I think before anybody even deconstructs, I think the first thing most people will accept before they deconstruct or going on that path is the fact that the first stories we learn about the Bible, at least in my tradition, the first stories that you hear, which are well, first three stories actually are Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, and Jonah and the well. Those are
Do you
usually the three. And
do you
Tower of
mind
Babel.
do you mind telling us exactly what your religious tradition was?
Yeah, I was Pentecostal. I was
Okay.
Pentecostal Christian. Yeah,
Is it
and
Church of God in Christ, kind of, sort of, or?
kind of because our denomination is originated in Haiti.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
yeah, it is related to Church of God in Christ, but it's the New Jerusalem, Church of God,
Oh,
New Jerusalem. Yeah.
okay. Gotcha. All
Yeah.
right.
So it was that denomination. So we were Pentecostal, and those are really the four stories that you heard first: Tower of Babel, Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, Jonah and the well. All kids can absorb those stories without question. Now as we get older, uh, on my debates, I still hear grown people actually believe that Adam and Eve was true, but you'll get most people who would say that yeah, Adam and Eve is an allegory. That's probably didn't happen, right? And I think right there, once you accept that Adam and Eve was likely an allegory, the next question then becomes, okay, so first sin probably didn't happen. And if first sin probably didn't happen, you have to then eventually get to the point of what was the point of all these other things? And then you get to what was the point of Jesus? Because if Jesus, got sacrificed for all the sins in the world or whatever, it all comes to the first sin. You know what I mean? So I've always noticed that the deconstruction journey starts at the Adam and Eve story usually, or the Noah's Ark story, or the Tower of Babel story. Is one of those stories. Once one of those get knocked down, you have to actually question everything, because almost everything else is pretty much plausible, or consequence after the next. So I think in my religious upbringing, yeah, that was the first stories that I heard. Right now, by the time I was 15, and I'm in school, I'm learning about science, I'm learning about evolution, I'm learning about the age of the earth. At this point, I'm like, okay, yeah, Adam and Eve is probably an allegory. Yeah, yeah. But that wasn't a big deal. Adam and Eve is probably an allegory. There's something that I don't understand about it. uh, God probably gave the first souls to the first, Australopithecus or the first Neanderthal. That's who God gave the souls to. And, this story is just an allegory for, God explaining to the writers of the Bible how he did evolution, but they didn't understand it. So that's how I took it at first. Um, but then when I understood that, okay, I still believed in the Noah's Ark story, but at that point, I knew that Tower of Babel wasn't true either. Because I was always inquisitive, looking into stuff. Just the linguistics itself, just the entire field, will show you that Tower of Babel is crap, right? So now I'm like, okay, so maybe Jonah and the whale and Noah's Ark are true, and I believed in Noah's Ark all the way to the point I was like probably 21 or 22. I wholeheartedly believe that there was a worldwide flood, and when he asked me that question, why do I believe what I believe? That's the first thing I went after. I said, okay, the Noah's Ark is definitely true, right? So if that's true, then we have no reason to question majority of the Bible. Then, like, it's telling us the truth. This was an actual, real historical event, and that's evidence right there that the Bible has some truth to it. Then I started doing some deep digging in order to come up with the evidence of it. And guess what I came up with? Bupkis. Absolutely
Bub
nothing.
kiss. Absolute bub kiss, yes.
Came up with absolute bupkis. And that's what led me to Jonah and the Whale too. Cause I'm like, okay, I can't come up with anything for this, but let me look for Jonah and the Whale, because I'm pretty sure there are more stories of people getting swallowed by whales. And because a blue whale is the biggest animal, people definitely got swallowed before. Let me look for those stories, et cetera, et cetera. And then I found out that the blue whale has a throat the size of a dinner plate, so it cannot swallow anyone. you know, it cannot swallow
just
anyone.
just the plankton and also the very small cuttlefish that actually it can like open its mouth to actually, go down its throat.
Exactly,
Human
exactly. That's what I
beings will
found.
not be yeah, human beings will not be large enough in order for it to enter a blue whale.
Hmm.
It's interesting like how when you look at like these different biblical stories, right? And you start to analyze them to see if they would hold water to reality. And
Hmm.
then you find out that they don't. I remember getting into a back and forth with a person that I knew concerning the worldwide flood, right?
Hmm.
And he was telling me that, hey, it had to be a worldwide flood because there's been like, flood stories that have been recorded. I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, because like floods happen all over the world. That
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean the entire world flooded. There is
Exactly.
not enough water between then like when purport when this supposedly happened
Hmm.
versus now, between the atmosphere and also on the earth, in order for it to flood. I mean,
Right.
like you can get to the point where you can have rains and you can have like different areas who have like a lower sea level that is going to flood. That happens now. However, when it comes to actually flooding the entire globe,
Hmm.
and then especially
Can't
like
happen.
it can happen. And then especially like when you think about the authors of the Bible that we know,
Hmm.
they did not have a vast knowledge of the entire globe. They didn't even know that this was a globe that we were living on.
Yeah. That was some other problems I found.
It's like they were completely, um they were completely insular to their environment, right?
Hmm.
And people have a tendency to write about the things that they know concerning what happens where they are. Not necessarily if they're not a traveling bunch, which ancient Palestinians were not.
Or not. Hmm.
That then that's going to be a thing that's not that they're going to say, okay, yeah, this happened, but it's more like a myth.
Hmm.
I, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and I mean like, and we already know that human beings make up stories all the time in order for them to try to understand and explain what their world around them is with what they observe. Now, when they get new information
Hmm.
that can be corroborated, then that narrative changes, right? But they're going to um but they're going to like go on anything that's observable rather at that time period.
Yeah.
So to actually, say that, okay, there was a worldwide flood and we came from two people who were told not to eat from the tree of knowledge, but got kicked out of a paradise. I mean, like none of those things actually like hold up to reality. It's so it's interesting, and 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 it's still, and what really gets me, Volsy, is
Mhm.
that those ideas are still held as true.
That's true. That's sacred. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, what you said about the history of it is actually what really was the last like stone for me. Not
Mm,
like there was a science of it all,
mhm.
but I also realized the geography of it all. Right, most cultures who have a flood myth live near bodies of water. Just about all of them. You know what I mean, they either live near a river or near a lake. And what happens to rivers and lakes during monsoon season or during rainy seasons? They flood.
They
So of
flood.
course, so of course, these ancient people from probably 100,000 years ago, when the stories actually first got started, you know, what I mean that's what I've always said, right? The Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah's Ark. This was basically like a caveman, like an early Homo sapien who lived near a river. Yeah, I mean, his village got flooded, and then he thought he was the only person in the world, because he didn't know about everything else. That's exactly what happened, and that's what passed down. That's what passed down to Noah's Ark. That's what I've always said. And if you look at the Chinese flood myth, what is it? The Yalu River, right? The Indians have a flood myth. It's the same thing down there. They're near a body or river. The Kenyans have a flood myth as well. It's the same thing near a river. So it's all these cultures live near bodies of water. So yeah, they flood. They're gonna get a flood myth. And the last thing it was is always, when was it supposed to happen? Right? When it was supposed to happen? And you always hear about maybe 2,300 years ago or 1,000 years before the Egyptians. It's like 1,000 years before the Egyptians. Like when? 5,000 BC, 4,000 BCE. When? Right? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to tell me that this was supposed to happen around 2,300 BCE, which is what a lot of the people who come up on my stage like to say, they say it happened around that time. I was like, y'all realize that the Chinese civilization, like, it existed in 4,000 BCE. It existed throughout 2,300 BCE without a stop and afterwards. So when was it supposed to happen? Because you would see a stop in their civilization if this was actually the case. You would see the Chinese flood myth happen around at least 2000 or 1900 BCE if it was supposed to happen in 2300 BCE. But it doesn't. Their flood myth happens way after that. So, or actually before that. So it doesn't reconcile, nothing but reconciling. And when I realized that, okay, Noah's Ark isn't true, I then had to start asking a real deep question to myself. Adam and Eve probably isn't true, right? So there's no first sin. Noah's Ark story likely isn't true. Jonah in the well is 100% BS. Tower of Babel is 100% BS. These things are not true, right? But they all talk about God coming down to punish the world for some sort of sin. So it's a real deep question. Okay, what exactly is sin, and how do we know where sin comes from? And it goes back to Adam and Eve. And it's like, if sin is disobeying God, but Adam and Eve did not happen, what else didn't happen? You have to ask yourself, what else didn't happen? What is the point of first sin? If What is the point of Jesus dying on the cross for the sins of the world if Adam and Eve did not happen? And I ask this question all the time. I ask this question all the time to people on my stage. I'm like, Adam and Eve has no evidence about it. It's definitely not true. So what's the point of sin? There's no point of it.
Can we even acknowledge or examine what the punishment was? Like the sin
Mm-hmm.
that caused the punishment for Adam and Eve. It was because they sought knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It, I wonder to myself sometimes because, like, growing up Christian myself, and even though like I started in a different, I know that you mentioned that your background is, as far as like religious culture is through Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is through Jamaica. My mom's Jamaican, and I grew up Episcopal. Now, I ended up getting saved when I was in my first year of college.
Hmm.
And I happened to attend more Pentecostal holiness, Church of God in Christ leaning um, uh, uh, churches at that particular time.
Right, right.
I decided that I needed to study more when it came to the Bible and also become a minister because I felt and I was also prophesied that I was supposed to be a minister and evangelize the word of God. You know how that
Same.
goes. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know how
yeah,
that go.
yeah,
Especially
yeah,
since I'm a
yeah,
PK. I'm a
yeah,
PK,
yeah.
so yeah.
Oh my.
So definitely.
Yeah, that's a whole different trauma that I was exposed to.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. I understand that there's a PK trauma, but
mm.
I did not experience that, but I have observed it. So you know I would pray for you, but I don't believe that. Uh, but I know that when I was studying to be a minister, I had a lot of questions,
Mhm.
and I, because like we're diving into the Bible, right? Not just like the things that you would hear on a Sunday morning or maybe like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, like Bible study. We're getting like deep in the roots of it. We are told to have like different sources to assist us with our biblical understanding. We have to have
Right.
a Strong's concordance, right? We need to have like maybe a parallel Bible, that has like different translations as well, like maybe the New King James with the Amplified and the New English translation and the NIV, etc.,
Mhm.
etc. So, but all these different things are coming up, and I'm like questioning, like, okay, something is not making sense.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if this is something that was told to you. I know that I was told when I'm asking questions about what I am seeing and reading.
Mhm.
And when I go to my sources to get a better understanding, I get more confused. So I'm
Mhm.
asking my teachers, you know, what did this really happen? Should we look at this as just like an allegory, or should we look at it more so as like fact, right?
Mhm.
But when we look at facts and we try to corroborate these facts to see if like we have the evidence of this thing happening, it's not available. So how should we look at it?
Mhm.
And I get the question and I get the answer. Sister Cynthia, you need to just pray more that the Lord will send his spirit, the Holy Spirit, to teach you so that you can gain a better understanding. See, the problem with you is that you're not praying hard enough for
I already know.
understanding.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. 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 It's so. What do you mean I ain't praying hard enough, bro? Like, what does that mean?
I
Like,
Yeah,
God should know this already, right? Just
yeah.
let me know, bro. Like, come to me in a dream or something. Just let me know. Like, what do you mean I ain't praying hard
Something.
enough?
I mean, like, listen, I remember like when I had my previous partner who was an atheist used to say that like if God really wanted us to actually understand things, like He would have downloaded it in our brains like we download information to a computer, and I would have to agree.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just really interesting like how all these different things like just like play out in like and how they just show up, especially like in
Mhm.
our community. So for many Black Americans, religion is deeply tied to family, culture, and survival. What
Mhm.
was the hardest part of deconstructing within that context for you?
Same. Thinking that I'm gonna lose my family because
Mm.
when it comes to my dad even said when my dad found out that I didn't believe anymore. He said it in Creole, but he said the same thing. He said you can't be Haitian and not be Christian. There's no such thing. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
my God, are you serious?
yeah, exactly. He said the exact same thing. He said being Haitian and being Christian are synonymous. They're the same thing. Like you can't be Haitian and not be Christian. Yeah, I mean, so it was one of those things where when I was going through deconstruction, that was one of the things I was really, really afraid of. Am I going to lose my community? Am I going to lose my family? Because when it comes to myself, right, I know a lot of people go through trauma and church hurt and everything like that, and there's no like excuses for it or no minimizing any of that, right? But when it comes to me and myself and my experience at church, I was lucky enough to not really go through that. Now, of course, there was drama in church because, we're young. We're like 15, 16-year-olds, and you get boyfriends and girlfriends and everything like that. But for me, it was always like, what are my fondest memories of Christmas? It's at the church doing plays. What's my fondest memory of New Year's? Is at church, seeing all the people seeing all the people come back to the church if they were away for college or something like that. You know what I mean? Hanging out with those people. Some of my fondest memories of childhood from 4th of July when the church goes to the beach. You know what I mean? So now I was lucky enough to be born a cisgender heterosexual male. So of course, church culture was going to be a lot easier for me. I mean, I was gonna, and now that I was a PK, so kind of coasted, right? So, but at the end of the day, it's like a lot of I know I had the privilege of having that, but it was still like my fondest memories. You know, what I mean, the my best friend still now. I mean, my first girlfriend, church. Literally all of my canon events were all church. So when I was deconstructing and I'm figuring out that I don't believe in this anymore, I was thinking, what's gonna happen to all the friends and the family that I made? I mean, will my mom and dad not let me be in the house? Because I've heard how they talked about non-believers before. Will some of my best friends, Richard, Patrick, uh, you know, what's his name, Friendy, his sister Katia, what I mean? Like, what will happen to all those people? Because they used to call me all the time. Somebody loved me all the time. When I was going through depression, they were the ones who were there for me. What will happen if I don't believe in this anymore? I mean, I was afraid to lose, and that's really the main thing that kind of kept me in. But I got to a point where I was like, man, if I got to be honest with myself, man. If I don't believe this, I don't believe this. I just can't pretend. It's not part of my character to pretend to believe something that I don't. So just
I,
had to
I
let them know I don't believe this.
Yeah, I think that that would make sense
Mm,
when, well, first off, like I know specifically for like a lot of us black folk, regardless, like if they are African American or even if they're a black immigrant or a black
mm,
immigrant, like, first generation in America, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of us are very much so attached to a Christian cultural belief system, right?
mm-hmm.
And we happen to create and gather, as far as like, community around that particular idea.
Yep.
And so a lot of us, even if it doesn't necessarily comport to our own point of view, especially if we start to really think about what we are being taught, what we
Mm-hmm.
read, how, and especially like if we seek higher education and we are exposed to ideas of science, philosophy, history, etc., we start to really see these things for what they are, and it starts to unravel in our eyes. But we rarely say a lot because we're
Mm-hmm.
concerned about losing our community.
Exactly.
Mm. And I,
Exactly. Very concerned.
and to me that's very sad because, like, I was lucky enough that in my specific tradition,
Mm-hmm.
my mom being Episcopal and my father being Catholic, when I came out as atheist, it was not that big of a deal. Maybe if I did it like 20 years before I did it, it would
Mm-hmm.
have been. But, churches is something that was just like part of what we did. It wasn't necessarily, you know, an integral portion on how we lived our life, right?
Right.
So, it's just kind of like, okay, you're on church on Sunday, you go, right? You
Mm-hmm.
and then you do your Nicene Creed and you confess your sins and then you're fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, well, fortunately, whatever, that how you go throughout your week is just you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to the point where, like, if you were agnostic, atheist, questioning, etc., it's going to be that big of a deal that, the point that you're going to be like shunned. So I was fortunate in that part.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, some of my counterparts who were in a deeper, more pervasive, like Christianity and the power that is behind the Holy Spirit or what have you, is
All right.
really part and parcel of your identity. Like you said, and I have heard this before. Your dad said, you can't be Haitian and not be Christian.
Yeah.
you know, and then I also have heard, not necessarily, pointing at me,
Mhm.
not necessarily like, you can't be Jamaican and not, Christian. And besides, my mom told me I'm not a Jamaican. She's Jamaican. I'm American. And I was like, I'm not gonna argue with you. Uh, but
I've heard that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you were born here,
So you're American.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Your
American.
parents Asian. You're American.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Your mama Jamaican, but you American. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah, no worries. So, but this part is what I heard often. You can't be black and not be Christian.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
how can
I've
you
heard that.
say, yeah, like how can you say that you are pro-black? You are 10 toes down with blackness. Like
Mhm.
you're the whole CB4 area where I'm black, y'all. I'm
Y'all,
black,
I'm black,
y'all.
y'all.
I'm
I'm
blackity
blickety
black,
black and I'm
and I'm
black.
black, y'all. Right? Yeah, that's you, right? And still say, "Oh, but I don't believe in God." Like
Hmm.
how dare you? That's
Exactly.
that's a portion of it. Like, what do you say to those people who really start to get into identity with race and community when it comes to belief?
Yeah. Here's one thing I always say, right? Because I know you had a bar here before. Me
Yes.
and him like to do those of our lives. We always say that black people shouldn't be Christian or Muslim. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean because
Or a
those
black
are the
Hebrew or a black
all black
Hebrew
Hebrews are
Israelite.
like exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Christian or Muslim because they're the religion of our enslavers, and Black Hebrew Israelite because it's a cult. It's just stupid. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't make any sense. So we shouldn't be that
listen,
either.
listen.
But
I've had my back and forth with Black Hebrew Israelites. It is not
mhm,
pleasant. I
not
ended up
pleasant.
cooking them only because, like, I actually came from, I don't know, facts and reality. But
Mhm.
regardless of that, it's not pleasant. But continue.
Not pleasant at all. We have to cook them every single time.
Hey,
But
yes sir, yes
what it
sir.
so I always but besides that, right? I always say that this is a religion of our enslavers. It doesn't come from us. Yeah, I mean, and they will do it the entire. Oh, it was in Africa before it was in Europe. I like first of all, majority. I was sorry. I was about to say the N word, but I was like, I was about to say the majority of y'all brothers. I'll say that way. I'll say that way. I said majority of y'all brothers not Ethiopian. All right, y'all's not Ethiopian. That's one thing. But the second thing I would say is that even when it comes to Ethiopia, they had something else before Christianity got there. And not only that, like, did y'all forget about the book of like Thessalonians and what was that? Not Chronicles. It was something else. What was it? Phew, I keep forgetting. But the books that Paul wrote, those books. Yeah, I was always like
The epistles.
epistles. Yeah, the epistles. Exactly. All those were written to churches in Greece, which means that Greece is famously in Europe. So they had it before Africa, right? So these are things that I would always say, like, y'all, this is still foreign to us. Number one, but number two, political and religious opinions are not you. They're not the community. They're essentially like books in your backpack that you go to school with. And anytime those books get outdated, what do? You toss them because you're going to get updated information. Like, you still don't have your math book from the fifth grade. Yeah, I mean, when you go to college, because when you go to college, what do you have? You have trigonometry, you have calculus, you have some sort of advanced math like physical chemistry, physics. It's horrible up there. I don't know how physics do it. I don't know how physicists do it, but they do it somehow, some way. But yeah, but you still don't
That's
have that.
that's their ministry, fam.
That's the ministry. Exactly. I don't know
That's
how
the
they do it. That's the
ministry.
ministry. It's like so. It's like you don't have the same packet that your fifth grade teacher gave you when you go all the way to college because that information is updated now. That information is outdated. You know, what I mean, you have more information now. So it's the same thing when it comes to politics and religion. Like you're always going to grow. Like your religion is basically, like I said, your book. You know what I mean? But once that book is outdated, once that book isn't doesn't serve you anymore, you switch it off for another book. You know, what I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And I've always told people that I was like, we should not tie so much of ourselves to our religious and our political opinion, because a little bit about my history as well. Not only that I used to be Christian, I used to be very socially conservative, very very socially conservative. The only reason why I voted for Democrats is because of racism. That was the only reason. But back then, I was very socially conservative. I always said the moment the Republicans stop being racist, I'm going to go ahead and vote for them. You know what I mean? Because like I didn't believe in a woman's right to her reproductive rights because I thought it was quote unquote killing children. I believe that women had a certain place in the home, and you know men should be go out there to provide and do everything. Like the men should be out there providing, and women should be at home, and they have a certain place in our society. You know, what I mean, I didn't believe that LGBTQ people should. I thought it was fine for them to get married, but they need to keep it away from kids. Something we're hearing today. Mm-hmm. Something we're hearing today. Yeah. So I used to be a social conservative, believing in all that, right? And then when I deconstructed from religion, I started deconstruct from things like, you know, patriarchy and misogyny, and start questioning, why do I think that women have a certain place when I know that Rosa Parks was a person, when I know that Angela Davis was a person, when I know about Elaine Brown, when I know about people like that? Why do I think that women should have a certain place? You know what I mean? What about the LGBTQ society? Langston Hughes, one person that I admire. He was in the LGBTQ community. Bayard Rustin, someone else I admire. Yeah, I mean he also was. Madam C.J. Walker likely was. You know what I mean? So it's like these are all people that I admire for the work that they've done for our community, but I don't believe that they should have equal rights. Why is that? I needed to start really questioning myself. I think once I lost that one big component of religion, I started to question all of my other social beliefs to see if they lined up with reality. They lined up with the evidence that we have on that we have. You know what I mean? I used to think that being gay was a choice until I started reading like psychological studies and psychiatry and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, it's not a choice. You know what I mean? And when because it was crazy because I used to say it's not a choice, but it's quote unquote wrong. But I was fighting with myself. It's like, how can something that they don't choose be wrong? Like, is my skin color wrong? Is not. That's kind of silly, right? So me like losing religion made me question all of that. And now I said that I'm way more to the left than I was back then. There are still some, of course, just growing up in society. There are
Yeah.
probably still some either misogynist or patriarchal beliefs that I still hold. Probably do. If I go down a list of things, you'll probably hear me say something that's a misogynist, and I don't even notice it. That's just because the way that I grew up. But at least right now, I actually notice that. You know, I actually
Mhm.
know that is, and I'll try to work through it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I think that like a lot of us, especially that who grew up in more conservative households, when it comes to like societal norms,
Hmm.
thought that way. And especially like if you are going to church every week and this is something that's like basically beating your head, that's how you're going
Hmm.
to think. I remember being confronted by a gay man, I want to say like about 20 years ago. And he was like upset concerning the news when it came to George W. Bush,
Hmm.
who was introducing or suggesting to Congress to pass a bill to outlaw gay marriage.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to because I liked him a lot. We got along very well. I didn't want to offend him, so I didn't
Hmm.
say much concerning what he said. And he called me out. He said that, I can tell that, this is something that you believe in and you're not really saying much about it because you don't want to offend me. And, but at the same time, you probably believe inside with George W. Bush. And I had to be honest. I said, you know what? I will tell you that what I've been taught is that man should not lay with mankind, women
Mm-hmm.
should not lay with womankind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I did, and I will say this, that I did say to him that I don't have any animus towards you or to the LGBTQIA plus community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with you existing or anything like that, and I think that you deserve civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
However, I had to reconcile that fight within myself to say that these are human beings and this is what their life is like, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are the things, these are the affections that they have, these are the attractions that they had. Who am I to say to them that how they live their life is wrong? And I think that was like some of the first in my experience that started to unravel, right? It started to, like, let's say that, like, okay, well, if you're okay with people and you want to be friends with people who happen to be different from you, especially when it comes to affections and different things of that nature, then how come you are still holding these ideas of how they're supposed to live?
Mm-hmm.
And especially like if you're hearing this from, the pulpit, because because let's keep it a book. From what I know now of the Bible, there are very few scriptures that have anything to say against men and men being together.
Right.
And then when you start to look into the history of these scriptures when it comes to that, even that starts to become nebulous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then come on top of that, when it comes to, women being with another woman, silence.
Silence. Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So like if you don't have anything to say with women and women being
Mm-hmm.
together, what's up with men? And
Yeah. Exactly.
and then come to find out that, the whole idea of like men being together, as far as like in, like, the Bible that we know now, that, that language was not added until much later, after
Much
the
later. Mm-hmm.
much later. I want to say like in like the late 19th, earliest 20th century, that we
Mm-hmm.
get this, get these particular scriptures interpreted the way that they were. More
Mm-hmm.
than like, more so, it was to say that men should not take a subdominant position when it comes to relations.
Exactly.
It's not the affection or the attraction
Mm-hmm.
towards the same sex. It has everything to do with who is dominant and who is submissive in in
Pretty
the
much.
in the so so like then that just tells me that, like, oh, okay, well, it's not necessarily that you have issues with gay people. You just have issues, like, with what they do, like, behind closed doors.
Close the doors. Exactly. Like one person, like men are supposed to be in a dominant role. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, it wasn't even about, the man that's doing the penetrating. It was about the man that's receiving. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, those, like, okay, that part you shouldn't do, but you're, because they didn't understand homosexuality the same way that we do. It
Right.
was a completely different understanding. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like they didn't really care. I was like, okay, whatever. He likes a guy. Just you should just be dominant. Yeah, I mean, that was really their only thing. Be
Mm-hmm.
dominant. So it was, it's when you look at stuff like that, you realize how much things are lost to history.
Yeah.
I mean, how like, that's why cultural anthropology is so important. and why history is so important. Yeah, I mean, I've always said when it comes to like the soft sciences, like things like history, anthropology, and psychology and sociology, those are extremely important. Very, very, very important because, it's that old idiom, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
And there's another one. History doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes.
Right.
So it's like, and we see history rhyming right now with the with who we got in the office.
Yeah.
History is rhyming with 1935 a lot. It's
Hello.
yeah,
Talk about it. Talk about
yeah,
it.
rhyming with that a lot. So those are things
Yeah.
that we should definitely look out for. And during my deconstruction journey, that's when I realized how important all these things is, because you'll be surprised just how much disciplines like need to how much, if you're in a certain discipline, you need to know a lot about all the other disciplines. Yeah, I mean, and it's like, for example, someone who's in chemistry knows a lot about physics, and someone who's in physics knows a lot about chemistry, and someone who's in geology knows a lot about chemistry and physics, because you have to know about those things in order for you to properly do your job. So I was my bachelor's is in politics, like political science and public administration. So because of
Mhm.
that, I needed to learn a lot about sociology. I need to know a lot about history. I even need to know a lot about geography because the way that some cultures developed is due to their geography. So I need to know about that. So it's like it's one of those things where uh you once you deconstruct and open your eyes to a lot of things, you realize just how many things that you didn't know, and you just go on a spree of trying to know things. Me, I think when I first deconstructed, I think um at that point I was obsessed with being on the computer, and the only reason why that was is because I was on Wikipedia going down rabbit holes all the time. I was just reading as much as possible because it's like there's so much that I didn't know. Because I
Mhm.
was such in a bubble of what my knowledge was. Like there's so much I didn't know. Like I didn't know there was a religious tradition that actually viewed the Old Testament God as evil and a New Testament God as a whole new God. A lot of those didn't I didn't know about any of it, and I went down a rabbit hole to figure it out. So deconstruction it was hard, but at the end of it, I think I it came out more knowledgeable.
Yeah, it's interesting as far as like, when you start to go down those particular rabbit holes and start to learn, right, about different cultures, different histories that are like identified and also attached to those cultures, and like how they even possibly like comport to reality. It really starts to it starts to frame, and even it starts to like get to the point where it starts to get to the point where it starts to inform your own worldview, right?
Mhm.
Because like we grow up in certain like areas where like all these particular idioms from our culture start to inundate how we think and how we present, how we even like start to come out into the world, right?
Mhm.
And then when we start to learn about, okay, well, maybe this thing is not necessarily true, or this thing does not necessarily comport to reality, or maybe like some of the things that I have been taught as an individual growing up may not necessarily like really like latch onto reality, then possibly the things that I feel, how I want to present, how I want to like live my life in this world is going to change.
Mhm.
And even like it can inform like like how we show up in the world when it comes to ideas and how we want to see our world going forward. So
Exactly.
I want to pivot because like you talked a little bit about, and I know that like when we were before we started, you were talking about like how you were doing a platform that not just talked about like deconstructing and like belief, but also political ideology.
Yes.
So, I wanted to ask about your show, Bring That Smoke. It's built around debate and discussion. So let me ask you first, like, what really motivated you to create that platform?
Our political situation at the moment,
Mm.
definitely. Our political situation definitely wanted me to talk more about it, because one thing that I've seen when I started to learn about, political science and everything like that, I realized that everything in our society is connected somehow to our political reality. Yeah, I mean, if, like, for example, one of the big issues right now is affordability. Our the rent going up, the price of electricity growing up, water, those type of things. Groceries. Those are and we you would think, like, how are those related to politics? Well, the rent and the mortgage is going up is because, like, these companies, what they do is that they purposely they purposely make some homes or some apartments unavailable. And if things are unavailable, guess what? If there are only a few amount of things, and that means that the price will go up. But they only did that artificially. Like, all of these homes and all these units, they are available. It's just that they're being artificially hoarded, so therefore it looks unavailable, and therefore it pushes the price up. So what can we do about that? You need your politicians to regulate it. Unfortunately, a lot of our politicians are not, because they're in the pockets of these corporations, and they don't regulate it. Same thing with the food we eat. The reason why we have an obesity issue in America today is not even because Americans are just eating McDonald's every single day. That's part of the problem, but the main problem is because there's sugar in everything. If you check all of our food, sugar is literally in everything. And then when I start to research to see why is sugar in everything, is because the sugar industry, basically those barons, the robber barons from back in the day, they basically paid off people to make fake studies to show that trans fat is actually what's causing obesity and not sugar. And until today, that's when we find out that it's sugar that causes obesity, not the trans fat. You know what I mean? But because they're still in the pockets of the industry, our politicians are in the pockets of those industries, it's not regulated. You know what I mean? So, like, that's the reason, like, our political reality made me see that. And not just because of those things, but also because I see people vote against their interest. I would constantly see that. I'm constantly like, for example, I became politically aware around the George Bush time, right? And even though I couldn't vote during that time, I spoke to people because I was like 16, so I couldn't vote. But I spoke to people who could vote to see what they were going to go for. Now, of course, George Bush had like 4%, black support back then, I think. But I spoke to people who were part of that 4%. And when I asked them, what was going on, it was for the same reason. They were not really politically aware. They were like, Bush is going to stop gay marriage, and that was it. And I was like, do these people understand that's not how that works? This is not how that works. And even still till today, when it comes to, like, Trump and this entire issue with Trump, right? When I speak to black Trump voters, and when I ask them what exactly are you voting for, yeah, I mean, I've heard uh a range of reasons, from he's holding the black community accountable, to he makes me laugh. Like, literally, that was the reason. He makes me laugh. You know what I mean? And it's like, y'all, politics is not entertainment. All right. He's the leader of the free world. He has the nuclear codes in his pocket. You cannot just vote for someone just because they entertain you. That's ridiculous. It's going to affect you sooner or later. Yeah, I mean, like, these policies, when we don't address issues of redlining, which has destroyed the black dollar, when we don't address issues like medical apartheid, when we don't address those type of issues, like when we don't vote with those in mind, yeah, I mean, it's going to make issues in our community worse. So I said, yeah, I just can't sit back and complain about it and talk to people about it. I'm gonna go ahead and build a platform around it and be like, listen, we need to actually talk about these issues. And what I found out is that when it comes to, because a lot of folks would assume that black people are, socially conservative because of Christianity and everything like that, and that some of that is true. But when I bring up to these people, hey, um, leftist policies are better for America or better for society, because I'll talk about things like parental leave. You know, mothers and fathers should get 6 months paid off to be with their children, their newborn children. Want to talk about walkable cities? There should be, better public transportation. Your job should only be a 15-minute walk away from you. Things like that. When I talk about universal healthcare, especially, I mean, all of us should have access to healthcare. It shouldn't matter what's in your pocket. You should have access to healthcare. When I talk about things like guaranteed housing, the wealthiest country on the planet, the wealthiest country that's ever existed, should not have homeless people. I mean, there are countries, Finland, for example, solved homelessness. How did the United States not solve homelessness? That's insane. And we're the wealthiest, most powerful country in history, and we cannot solve homelessness. That's insane. I mean, when I talk about these things, I found, especially when it comes to Black folks, they all agree with me on all of those across the board. The reason why a lot of them lean the other way or think that they're going to vote Republican next time, it always comes down to LGBTQ issues. And right now, the flashpoint is trans issues. You know what I mean? And I was like, and when I figured this out, I was like, y'all are voting against your best interests because some 13-year-old trans girl in Vermont wants to play soccer. Like,
It,
what are you doing? You
it's
know?
not just that though, fam. Like, we also have an issue specifically with people who happen to tend to go conservative route, like who are Black, who are like, let's just say foundational Black American, because they have issues with immigrants. I've
Just that.
had, yeah, I had conversations concerning, foundational Black Americans, freedmen, descendants of chattel slavery, oh, however they would like to be identified, concerning the issues that they have with, like, immigrants possibly taking their jobs, or they are, replacing them, or something to that effect. I remember having a conversation with a person. If you remember when Trump went to Chicago to be interviewed by the National Association of Black Journalists,
Mhm,
and the person who was leading the conversation was Abby Phillips.
mhm,
And one of the things that he was espousing concerning, like, immigrants, is that they were taking the Black jobs.
mhm.
And then so when he was asking what are, like, when Abby asked what are Black jobs, he said those are the jobs that Black people have. I said, okay, so how are immigrants taking
The jobs.
jobs of Black people when they already have those jobs? I don't. That makes no sense.
No
And
sense.
no, and I remember being like, I felt like, when I was talking to another, foundational Black American about that, like, did you hear what he said? That's like very racist. And it was like, well, what he really meant was, I said, wait a minute, are you turning apologist for a man who's known to be a racist?
Hmm.
Like, he has been documented as a racist for a very
For a
long
long time.
time. Are you, is this what's happening right now? Are you telling me that?
Hmm.
And it was like, well, the immigrants, especially the Latinos, they don't like Black people. And I was like, listen, let me tell you something. There is an issue specifically in Latin culture, especially Latin American culture, called mejora la raza, right?
Hmm.
Improving the race,
Hmm.
where you have more Latinos who happen to lean more, Caucasian, and want to keep that lineage that way. So
Hmm.
they ask their children, and they push their children to marry, create, babies who, with people who happen to be more European looking, right?
Hmm.
But when you look at, a good amount of, like, Latin America, especially like in Mexico, like the majority of those people are indigenous, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, you have like the second biggest portion, especially in Brazil, are Afro Latine, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, so like that, so that's that issue there. This is a bigger problem concerning racism, colorism, and all those particular ills that have been brought by European culture versus this particular individual don't like you because you Black, right?
Yeah.
So like, and I've always said this too, that the moment. that all of us realize that we have the same oppressor.
Yeah, it's we just gotta come together and figure we have the same. I mean, when it comes to the whole FBA thing, right? Like
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
had run-ins with that as well, especially on Twitter, which is why I
yeah,
kind of stay off Twitter now.
yeah.
Um,
I am
I
too.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I've had
am
run-ins
too.
with that because I didn't understand. Because for me, when it comes to entire diaspora wars, it's very it's a waste of time. Just like how the
Mm-hmm.
gender wars are a waste of time. Like
Mm-hmm.
these things are a complete waste of time, right? But one thing that I've noticed is the same thing that you're saying. It comes from a space of basically grifting. I would say the reason why I say that is because there are like legitimate concerns, right? There could
Yes.
be a concern of what will happen to like the budget or the resources uh that we're concerned about within this country uh if there's a lot of immigrants here, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a question of concern. But the moment you say that immigrants are coming here to deliberately undermine the progress of Black Americans, now you're going into conspiracy weed like crap. You know what I mean? You're going to conspiracy BS. I've heard the same thing with when it comes to me being Haitian, right? Like I shouldn't speak on black politics at all because I'm Haitian. And I'm like, y'all realize what happens to black people happens to me, right? It's
Yeah.
because the way I look, because like hello, like what
Yeah. No. No.
happens to you is gonna
Like.
happen to me,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, no, and that's completely possible. Like, listen, when we look at like the inception of foundational Black Americans, like this came out of the ideas of American descendants of slavery,
mhm,
which was all about how we're supposed to delineate people who are coming from a certain lineage when it came to reparations,
mhm.
which I don't have a problem with at all.
Yeah, same.
And also too, like, if I were to say, like, part of my lineage is Jamaican, yes, but my other part, my paternal side, is foundational Black American. My father is an American descendant of slavery. I was able, in one Sunday afternoon, in 30 minutes, like, be able to um, use my father's information to trace my ancestry back to American chattel slavery. So that's so I identify as both. I identify as myself as a person from Caribbean Jamaican descent, and also as a person who happens to be a descendant of chattel slavery in America, in the
Mhm.
United States of America. Right, that's who I am. And but the thing is, and I understand, like, there is a definite real discussion to have concerning, like you mentioned, resources, how those things are, like, doled out, versus immigrants, versus, like, people who happen to be in here, for more than one, for additional generations, and especially who have built the nation. But
Right.
like, and I think that, like, we also have to understand that because of Black American advocacy, we were able to open the door for other Black people from the diaspora to be able to immigrate to the United States. You
Mhm.
know, I think to myself, like, my mother and my grandfather, who came here before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. My grandfather came because he was a migrant farmer on a sugarcane plantation in Mississippi. And he was told that he was nothing but an N word with an accent.
Mhm.
He ended up utilizing his skills and selling them to the railroad, and he ended up in Chicago, where we are right now.
Mhm.
My mother was, he sent for my mother to come here. And the only reason why she came here is because she had stellar academic records. So she was able to win a student visa. This is not something that would have been able to be happening to, other Black folk in the diaspora before that particular bill happened. Right.
Correct.
So, I will say, like, to the ones who may have, like, animus towards Black Americans, when it comes to, all the different tropes that are being, like, espoused and propagated around the world concerning them. Like, every Black person who has come in here to the United States, post 1965, needs to, like, when they first see a Black American, just hug them and say thank you. You know, that needs to happen. But at the same time, I think that, like, Black Americans need to understand that immigration is not our problem. That's not our problem, because, like, the problems that we had concerning us as a societal, community, were here before we had an influx of Black immigrants coming from the diaspora.
Right.
Like you mentioned, we had redlining, right? We had, like, slavery, and now we have the 13th Amendment, which is basically slavery of another name, because if you are incarcerated, you can be leased out to the state.
So
And,
saying,
like,
right?
just like what happened in slavery times, when your owner could lease you out to other plantations or other industries, and whatever you worked, those wages went to your owner, right?
Yep.
And then we also have, like, issues with, like, the Black towns, and that have been either underwater or burned down
Burned
because
down.
of white animus, right? And we have a very deep seated need for, reconciliation, reparations, and recourse when it comes to Black Americans in the United States. The wealth gap is artificially made. It is not because Black Americans don't have the intuitiveness or the work ethic in order for them to close that gap. It has everything to do with the um, the overt actions of the federal government to state governments to municipalities that kept them away from wealth.
Hmm.
So, but that's not immigrants that's doing that
Yeah.
to people. That's not Hispanics, that's not Black immigrants, that's not, other people who are coming from different countries. That has everything to do with the government that is over you, that is dictating what you have and what you don't have. And
Yeah.
that's a problem
Hmm.
that I am seeing when we are, having these conversations with people who happen to lean that way, that they're not really seeing, like, the issue that, we are experiencing as a community, that it is the rules and the policies that happen to come from the federal level on down, that are dictating what you have and what you don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything that you brought up, because one of my topics on my debates is that Black Americans should get reparations, and everything you brought up is basically how I argue with it. Like, we have to look at the history of these things and how the federal government damaged the African American community, and that's the reason why reparations should happen. And when they ask which Black people, I'm like, what do you mean which Black people? African Americans. Yeah, I mean the immigrants who came in, like my parents in the '70s. We weren't around for Jim Crow, so what would we be repaired for? You know what I mean? So
Right,
that
exactly, exactly.
it's a specific community that deserves it. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it's like how you said, there are very nuanced conversations around this, because at the end of the day, even though we're all very similar, I've always compared it like this: we all know that French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian all came from Latin, right? They all came
Yeah.
from Latin, but we all know that Spanish is in French, French is in Italian, Italian is in Portuguese. They're all very similar, but they're different in some ways. That's something I was asking with the Black diaspora, especially if you're a descendant of Western Africa. Like, I have very similar connections, or I can see very similar cultural connections between me and my fiance, because she's Jamaican as well. So
Mm.
we have very similar connect. But the assumption from my family and
Both
hers,
of you all eat plantain.
yeah, we eat plantain. Yeah.
Yes.
So the assumption between both my family and hers is that we had a very deep cultural difference, until we actually started talking to each other and learning that the cultural differences are basically come down to, they speak English and we speak a French based Creole. That was the difference. You know, everything else is literally is probably just exactly the same. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, just different fonts. You know, so I said the exact same thing when it comes to this discussion. There are actual real conversations we can have, right? These
Hmm.
cultural differences, how far apart are they? can we still move as a group, even though we have these differences? You know what I mean? When people who are Black immigrant descent come over to United States with certain attitudes because of the caricatures that were sent out by American media, that needs to get checked. We need to understand that this is not what that is. Like, we need to understand that African Americans do have a unique culture that's global that a
Yeah.
lot of us copied. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? We need to understand that. And we copied it because yeah, it came from America and this was the most incredible thing that we saw. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, these are all conversations that we need to have. My main issue when it comes to the FBA thing is when it becomes disingenuous, because fighting for reparations is righteous, right?
Right.
Learning having a delineation, I could understand the reason for why that is, because again, even though like both of our communities could be dealing with an issue like such as diabetes, it may not be for the same reason. You know what I mean? Like the reason for diabetes in these communities, in one community could be for diet, and another could be for environment. We need to
Mm-hmm.
delineate that. We need to disaggregate the data for us to know which one is which. So there
Mm-hmm.
is, actual like benefit or reason for delineation. Yeah, I mean, but if the reason to delineate is to say that uh we're basically not even within the same community, yeah, I mean, or we cannot work together because we're just two distinct groups of people, and I'm superior because of this, that, and the third. Now we're having an issue. You know what I mean? When it gets to the point of like the people who act like trash pandas, I'm sure you know what I mean. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean,
Hmm. I
I
do.
don't have an issue with calling out someone who's a trash panda that happens to be an immigrant, whether they're Jamaican, Panamanian, somewhere from
Hmm.
Western Africa, etc.
Right.
If they're a trash panda and they're an immigrant, you can call that out. I have no issue
Yeah.
with that. The
Hmm.
issue that I have is that you say they're a trash panda because they're an immigrant. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the generalization is the problem that I have, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like, because like here's the thing, like those who happen to be genuine to say that yes, African Americans who descend from chattel slavery deserve reparations, right? And in order for them to be, and if you need to do a delineation to in order to like, point those people out, that's fine. But we have to also understand throughout the diaspora there is a justice claim that all of us have, right? The Haitian people have a justice claim. The people from the Caribbean, whether if you're Cuban, and Puerto Rican, even though Puerto Rico is, I know, that's part of the United States, but they weren't always, right?
Right.
When it came from Bahamas, where slavery was, like, from throughout Latin America, they have a justice claim too. Now, depending on what country or nation was the oppressing government,
Mm-hmm.
that would be the question to ask. But to say that, oh, they're different from us because they happen to be from these different nations, then we don't have anything in common other than our skin color. I said, yeah, but here's the thing: the transatlantic slave trade took over 12 million Africans
Mm-hmm.
from the western and central portions of Africa, and they were deposited in the United States, in Central America, in South America, and the Caribbean. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, when it comes to a lot of our lineage concerning our progenitors who happen to be enslaved in these particular areas, we all come from the same place, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to like who needs to be petitioned for our justice claim, that would be different. I wrote a blog post years ago, a few years ago, is saying that can we all work together to get our justice claim, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we, even though, like, I concluded to say that reparations in of itself is a domestic issue as far as like how it is doled out.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not believe that it is something that can be kicked aside to the point where we just say that everybody who happens to be black, depending on what community they're from, is on their own.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we are stronger in numbers together.
We definitely are. And the thing is that that's what like I always point out to people, because I always say that I'm in the Pan African tradition, and
Hmm.
you know, you get a lot of issues where, especially when it's FBA thing, because they criticize a lot of Pan Africanism, and Pan Africanism does have its issues, right? Like it has
Right.
an issue of not including women or
Mm,
LGBTQ society,
yeah.
and these are conversations that Pan Africanism themselves are having, because you know they're discussing on how this could work out to adding those communities. Yeah, I mean, you have Pan African women who have said that, hey, you're missing our viewpoint. This is what we need to add in, et cetera, et cetera.
Like Queen Mother Moore.
Queen Mother Moore, exactly.
Hmm.
You know, so there's that, right? You can have legitimate criticisms of Pan Africanism, but to say that it's suddenly a scam,
Yeah.
and like someone can use it as a scam, we know that,
Oh yeah.
right? But if that's the case, then you can say Black Power is a scam, because there are plenty of people who, especially remember the Tulsa, what was that? Was that a Tulsa real estate fund or something like that? There was a
Yeah.
guy who was saying, yeah, it's like he was gathering money, everything like that. He
Sure
was
did.
he yeah, he was gathering all that money, and he was using Black Power in order to do it. But
Uh-huh.
he was scamming people.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, but we're never gonna sit here and say that Black Power is a scam. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, so that's what I've always said. Like, these ideologies are not scams on their own. People can use them as scams, but when
Right.
it comes to Pan Africanism on its surface, we need to ingratiate ourselves into that more, especially worldwide. Like, imagine if, you know, the Congo or Nigeria or the entire Caribbean says, until y'all fix y'all issues with African Americans, you cannot vacation in Jamaica anymore. Like, you can't vacation here. Yeah, I mean, until y'all fix those issues. If the
Hmm.
Congo said, until y'all fix the issues with African Americans, you cannot mine here anymore. And
Yeah.
that's what global Pan Africanism will look like, because you can take their power back. Like, I guarantee you, if that were to happen, if just, you know, Jamaica or Bahamas were to say, white Americans cannot vacation here until they fix the issues of African Americans, you'll start to see people start talk about it in Congress. Yeah, I mean, they'll start to say, okay, maybe we should take a look at this more, and we need to take this seriously. If that were to happen, but that can only happen with a Pan Africanist mindset, that we all descended from a common ancestry, and we have similar destinies, despite the fact that we have some cultural differences. Those
Right.
differences do not make us enemies, which is exactly what my issue with the FBA thing has always been, that the differences all of a sudden make us opposing political interests, and they
Right.
don't. Yeah, I mean,
They
because
don't.
I want the same thing that you want, and
Right.
for some reason you're thinking that because my parents are born somewhere, that I want your reparations for some reason, or I want your resources, which doesn't make any sense, because this government
No.
wasn't built to give Black people resources. It just
No, it
wasn't.
wasn't.
So,
It was built basically like, when we're talking about reparations, we're just talking about, hey, pay what you owe, right?
exactly,
Reparations is at the end of the day, reparations is a debt, right?
it is.
And it's kind of like, if you borrow $20 from me and I come to you and you say, "Yo, I'm going to pay you back in a week," and then I come back to you a week later and I'm like, "Where my $20?" And you
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
nah, fam. Like, you said you was gonna pay me in a week by $20, and that's basically like, what we're talking about concerning reparations. But like, here's the thing: when it comes to all the things that affect us as a whole, like climate change, like infrastructure, like when it comes to housing, food insecurities, like
Hmm.
healthcare issues. All these different things like still affect us all as a community, and we even know for a fact that a lot of the reasons why we don't have the things that we need in order for us to be a survival race is because of racism, right?
Racism. Exactly.
And and I mean, like, how long have we been talking about Medicare for all? Like, how long? And
Forever.
and forever. And and oftentimes, like, when you mention medical apartheid, a lot of times you have issues concerning corporate America, who doesn't necessarily want to do that because, oh, we're going to help Black people too. I'm like, well, shit, we're citizens, we live here.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, we contribute to the society. Like, yeah, do that shit. I mean, but and that's when it comes to the idea of voting against your interests, right?
mhm.
not just like, because like black folk do it too, just because like they're seeing, oh well, these people are doing this and these people are doing that, right? And I'm just like, okay, but when you are caping for certain things because you're concerned about another group of people,
Mhm.
you are really missing the point of the people who are keeping you away from things to contribute to your very survival,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah, and that's always been my thing. We need to vote for. I mean, black people have been in survival mode ever since we got here. You know what I mean? So we vote in survival mode. And I want
Yeah,
us to start moving into thriving mode, which is all good and well. But as of right now, we need to come up with a strategy on how to actually build black political power, because simply taking yourself out of the equation is not going to build that power.
right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
You just can't take yourself out of the equation. You're not going to be able to build the power. Black people do not. I pointed this out before, y'all. I actually pointed this out before, and I think there were a couple of folks from the FBA that kind of was upset at me for saying this, but I was like, I've always said, you have to build some sort of coalition,
Right.
because we are not enough of the population to tip anything. All right,
Yeah.
we can't tip anything. We're not enough of the
Yeah.
population, and my hypothesis was proven last week with the Texas Senate primary.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
the
Yep.
majority of black people voted for Jasper Crockett, and it meant nothing. You know what I mean? Because they have
Yeah.
another coalition. They have a whole other coalition. So you cannot take yourself out of the equation, think you're going to win, or it's gonna tip anywhere. They can just build
Yeah.
another coalition around you. And we have to focus on that. Just like how you said, our survival. We have to address the issue of food deserts, the issue of our schools not being funded properly. We gotta deal with the issues of the sheriffs and school board are not even responsible to us. They're responsible to the state, and the
Right.
state is against us. You know what I mean? So that means we have to vote in sheriffs and school boards who will be responsible for us. You know what I mean? These are all issues that we need to look at, just like how access to health, access to like the fact that many of our homes are around industrial areas, which causes
Mhm.
pollution, which causes lead in the air. You know what I mean?
That's why
These
we
are
have a
things.
cancer alley right now.
We have a cancer rally, exactly. So
Yes.
these are things that we need to focus on, and we need to come together as a people in order for us to come up with a platform. Because simply saying, you know, uh, the immigrants are gonna get deported, how's that gonna get you reparations, bro? How's that gonna lower the price of your mama's insulin?
It
It's
hasn't.
not.
It
It's
hasn't.
not
Like,
exactly.
you have a ramped up portion concerning, like, deportation, and these people have been like super unsurgical concerning like who they're deporting. I mean, like, you even have American citizens that end up in CCOT, who are
Yeah.
ending up in Alligator Alcatraz, who were ending up in some of these other ICE detention centers being detained, and a lot of times they knew that they were citizens, so like, why the
Mhm.
hell are they there? But when you had all those things happening, that has not gotten you closer to any equity, especially social and economic equity whatsoever.
Whatsoever.
So what are we doing here? What are we saying? Seriously.
Yeah, that's. I mean, at the end of the day, this entire diaspora war has heated up for the past, I think, 6 to 7 years, and
Yeah.
whenever I see it, I was at the same question. I was like, "Yo, where's this gonna get you?
Yeah.
Where is it gonna get you, and where has it gotten us?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I asked that question when it first started. I was like, "Y'all, where's this gonna get us?" And they're like, "Oh, you'll see. We have the plan, and everything like that." Okay, well, Trump is back in office. The black unemployment rate has skyrocketed.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's now close to 500 to 600,000 black women have lost their jobs.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, are we close? Are we any closer to into a black political power at all?
Nope.
Because you're not showing it. Yeah, I mean, and I don't even say this
I
as to diss them or whatever. I understand that immigration concerns are something that African Americans are concerned about. I 100% get it,
mhm.
but what is the way to actually build this political power that you were talking about? Because simply complaining about me talking about black issues, or there's a Haitian speaker of the House, or in Biden's last administration,
Yeah.
y'all sitting there complaining about that didn't do nothing.
Right.
What's next?
Yeah. The secretary was Haitian descent.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, but like, yeah, that doesn't change your position, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't, and whether because like here's the thing, we now have Caroline Levitt, who is the whitest, blondest Barbie that is up there, and you're still in poverty, right? So it has to be to the point where we are getting to the notion where, listen, you're going to have some boobies who are
Mhm.
not going to agree with you.
Mhm.
That happens, right? But there are going to be some people who happen to come from maybe a different portion of the world that do,
Yeah.
right? And if we can coalesce together to really push people to run in key areas of like Congress and and whether if it's like from the federal level on down, then that's when we can go ahead and press them and say like, hey, this is the policies that we need to happen.
Mhm.
You know, we need to get like a Green New Deal passed. We need
Mhm.
to have like a real infrastructure bill passed. We need to have Medicare for all. We need to have the Department of Education like rebuilt instead of gutted, right?
Yeah.
We need to like redirect some of those funds that you put into the Department of Homeland Security and also to the Pentagon, into social safety net programs in
Mhm.
order for the people who are living here to have like a proper life. It's crazy to me that you have other countries who are smaller, Scandinavian countries who actually have like a better social safety net than the United States, the richest country in the freaking world, you know. And we're like putting trillions and trillions of dollars into these unnecessary wars that are illegal, by the by, because we're just like invading other countries and like bombing other countries that had no thing to do with attacking us as a nation, but because dear leaders said we're going to do it, well, that's what we're going to do. But we still have people who are starving. We have people who are not attached to healthcare. We have people who are unhoused. We have people who are uneducated. We have people who are food insecure right here in the United States of America, which should
Mhm.
never be the case. And because like we have the infrastructure, the power, and the resources in order to make sure that everybody is taken care of, but we just don't do it because of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like we don't do it because of reasons or because someone can't make money off of it. We can't profit off of it.
Right.
We're not going to do it.
Capitalism, capitalism,
Capitalism is
capitalism.
it
Yep.
all goes back to capitalism. We're not doing it
Mm-hmm.
because someone's not going to make money. And you know what one thing I've said is that what I think I pointed out, capitalism is a sickness in in our society, not only because it's an economic system, but it can also be an ideology,
Yeah.
and it seeps into everything that we see nowadays. You'll see a lot of people, their relationships are transactional, right? Now, there's
Yeah.
going to be some transactions in a relationship, like your friends, your spouses. You're not friends or spouses with them for no reason at all. That is, they meet each other and boom, we're spouses. There's a reason why you have similar interests. Yeah, I mean, you make each other laugh, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, there's reasons why, but those reasons are one to one. You know what I mean? Like I'm attracted to my fiance and she's attracted to me. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's not the fact that I'm winning something by her being with me. Like I'm over her somehow. I'm profiting somehow. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of our relationships. A lot of our relationships are power struggles because people are trying to figure out how can I win over my own spouse, which is
Yeah.
insane. And we see the same
Yeah.
thing with church culture. Like that TikTok viral moment that went viral of the woman calling around calling the churches asking if they can help her with some baby formula.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that
Yes. Yeah.
if you hear a lot of what their reasons are, they want her to come in first in order
Mm-hmm.
to be part of the church. But why does she need to be part of the church? She need to be part of the church because they want to save her soul and make
Yeah.
her baby part of the church, part of that community, which means that they're gaining something from helping her out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
that's if you think about it, that's the capitalist mindset.
Yeah.
I need to make profit from doing this thing. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the profit simply changes. It's not about currency. It's about having saving a soul or being a member of your church. When it
Yeah.
comes to a relationship, it's not about the money. It's about the fact that I have power over this person, or I
Yeah.
have more clout than this person. Yeah, I mean, or I have more control of the household than this person. It's all about profit.
and and yeah, just like you said, like, that control, that power over the, that person, that, that family, etc., still can turn into dollars in some aspect,
Exactly.
yeah. And it's unfortunate that we are operating in this capitalistic, transactional relationship wise, right? Even though, like, as you said, that there's going to be like some value as far as, like, being attached to a person in a relationship, right?
Mhm.
I if I'm in a relationship with a person, I like spending time with that person. I like, the how we engage with one another, etc., etc. But it shouldn't be to the point where I'm trying to gain something for my own in aggrandizement versus them not, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, what capitalism does as an organization is that it only, it only operates if there is a marginalized group or an oppressive class. Like, it,
Mhm.
it has to, you know because it's not like, like, I had like these conversations with people before, concerning capitalism, and they would tell me, "Oh, are you, like, anti-business?" I said, "No, I'm anti-exploitation."
Mhm.
You can have, in a more, um, egalitarian, socialist democratic type of, a society, markets that work, where you can make your money, you can live a comfortable life, and you can service the people that are around you, whatever type of goods or, what a service that you provide, right?
Mhm.
But, to the point where you are gobbling up other entities because you don't want them to compete with you, and you want to control this entire market share just to yourself.
Mhm.
That's a problem. And obviously that was something that was also recognized by our leadership in the past. Think about Teddy Roosevelt, who is the one who really was the constrictor, and also the author and the enforcer when it came to antitrust laws.
Yep.
You know, and because of, as you mentioned previously, because of the robber barons,
Rob Burns,
because
exactly.
because of the people who were exploiting, the working and the poor class of people, in
Mhm.
order for them to become richer, and other people to basically, die at the behest of, the dollars that the robber barons are making. That's a
Mhm.
problem. And unfortunately, this is the idea that is being resurrected under this administration. And I wouldn't even say that this administration is the sole author of it, because we have seen this movie before that was playing out in previous administrations that, happened to be of the elephant class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Z-
So yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the Rob Burns of today are basically the big tech companies, the tech bros.
Yes.
They're the Robin Bands of today. And one thing that I've said is that um antitrust needs to hit that industry hard, like as
Yes.
soon as possible.
Yep.
Like, Meta is too big,
Yep.
Amazon is too big.
Yep.
Elon Musk has way too much influence over our political
Oh my
environment. Like,
God.
way too much.
That is the social, this is the social safety net welfare queen that we have to this day.
Yes.
Everybody keep on talking about, oh, well, what about, like, you remember during the State of the Union address when dear leader said that, he lifted over 2.2 million people off of SNAP.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, you mean you kicked
You kick them off of
2.2
Snap.
million people off of SNAP, yet
Hmm.
you are still allowing your government to have this one guy
Hmm.
hold over 30 to 40 contracts, government contracts, that have made him close to a fucking trillionaire.
What's the truth? And what's crazy is that Doge wasted money and didn't do. God, that shit annoys me to no end when it comes to
I
Doge.
know,
It
my
annoys me to no end. It be like,
God.
y'all, he wasted way more money than he was trying to save.
And
The things,
stole our individual and private information to make
it,
money off of it.
yeah, he sold our private information to Planeteer. And not
Mm-hmm.
only that, him and the people that had under him, these motherfuckers can't read. They
No.
just can't read.
No.
Because I saw the stuff that they were cutting and were claiming what it was about, and it was like, y'all can't read. Jesus Christ! There was like, oh, we're paying for condoms in Gaza, not knowing that there are other places named Gaza, and not
Mm-hmm.
knowing why the condoms were even going there, and
Right.
not even realizing that these weren't even condoms. Like this
Right.
is, I'm like, y'all can't read. It
Right.
was
These were preventative measures in order for us to send aid to different countries to stop the spread of AIDS.
Yes, it's like y'all cannot read. And I saw the whole Jubilee thing with Isaiah Martin, and he had
Mm-hmm.
to explain to them like, hey y'all, these are preventative measures for other countries. Like, oh, that won't happen if they don't let us in here. And he's like, do you understand that a plane exists? Like a
Mm-hmm.
person who's a full American can go to that country, catch
Mm-hmm.
it, and come back.
Yeah.
Like planes
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah,
Like do you?
which is basically the way that, HIV and AIDS was spread in the United States in the first place. It was people who were leaving the United States, going to different countries,
Mhm.
copulating with other people who happened to be infected, and they brought it back here.
Brought it
I
back
mean, like,
here. Exactly.
so like, okay, well, here's the thing. We know how it spreads now. So let's go ahead and take our resources in order for us to be able to prevent the spread of this particular, virus, which will
Yeah,
be good
exactly.
for everybody. Even in his first term, fam, he was on the initiative to eradicate AIDS in 30 years.
Yeah.
Which a lot of us, like, I was an infectious disease case manager, you
Mhm.
know, specifically, working with people who were living with HIV. So I was okay with that. I said, oh, okay, so you're really about pushing this whole measure to getting to zero. That means, U equals U. Undetectable means untransmittable. That means that you are suppressing the HIV virus to the point that the copies are undetectable, so it cannot be transmitted to another person that you happen to, either have sex with, or even share needles with, or the like, right?
Mhm.
And then and also we are copying these particular measures all around the world so that we are, spreading that messaging and behavior overseas, so that this can be a thing worldwide where we can really be able to eradicate this disease.
Right.
Because that makes sense.
It
Because we
makes
all
it.
live together as a
Mhm.
human beings, right?
As
Right?
human beings, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That this what makes sense for us to do,
Yeah.
and the thing is, it's such a selfish mindset that's been going on in over the past few years, and then we wonder why there's a whole male loneliness epidemic. It's like, y'all. Here's the thing that I would say, right?
Mm.
The male loneliness epidemic is the fault of men in two ways. Number one, we already know the main way, the red pill. The red pill
Yeah.
that taught these young men that women are objects, or women are beneath them socially, and they need to that taught them to not express their emotions. That taught them to hold everything in. That made stoicism a religion, something that they don't even understand, because stoicism never says to not express your emotions. It never says that, right? So they don't even understand the philosophy behind it. So that's one way, right? But the second way, I would say the default is myself, actually, or people like
Mm.
myself, because I knew when I first saw the red pill how goofy it was. When I first saw it, I was like, "This shit is goofy, bro. Like these dudes don't know what the hell they talking about." Like I was like, when kids grow up and they get into a relationship in their mid-20s, they understand that it's more of a partnership than of a one person above, one person below thing.
Right.
Most people understand that by the time they get into a serious relationship, they get it,
Right. Right. Right.
right? So I'm thinking this entire time that this entire phenomenon is going to fade away, because like
Mm.
no one's gonna follow this shit for long. Once they get into a relationship, they understand that that's not what it is,
But they're not in
right?
relationships.
Yeah,
These
exactly. But
guys.
then I didn't realize there was another part of this. They may
Mm.
not get into relationships in the first place. Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
and when they
Hmm.
do, they're going to ruin them because they're getting to into these little petty fights that they're getting from these red pill guys. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that. Yeah, I mean, which is why a lot of ways I was like, I blame myself or men like myself for not getting ahead of it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because now it's built an entire ecosystem, and we have to play catch up. You know what I mean? So it's a it's something that I do want to do. I'm like I joined an organization called Black Men Build. We spoke
Mm.
about this in our last meeting about promoting and trying to get out there healthy, positive masculinity, which is something
Yeah.
that I want to do in my lives one day. Like if one of my mods, I think is in the chat, he'll tell you the way I always in my lives. I always say that every man should be soft, and what that means is secure, affectionate, wise, flexible, and thoughtful. You know, I mean things that my father told me, like because being a man or being quote unquote masculine is a holistic process. You know, what I mean it's not just one thing. So
Mm.
now, right now, we're playing catch up in order to curb the influence of the red pill. And I hope we're not too late. I don't think we're late at all because a lot of Gen Z men are realizing the a lot of them are realizing the BS that they were on. Right, a lot of them are
Yeah.
realizing it, but we still need to build that ecosystem of making healthier men. That's what I want to be a part of.
Yeah, I need y'all to do that because I know that I have ended more than one relationship because of that. Um, yeah, I think it's like it's super important for us to understand that, when it comes to these ideas of like what is a woman versus what is a man versus what is a person who happens to not identify as either.
Hmm.
It happens to be that we can all coexist to each other as human beings, right?
Exactly.
And how we show up should be in a humanistic approach to each other. And I think that if we can get that type of messaging shared, from the top down, and I know that it's going to take work, we can get there. And with that said, I know I have kept you for a while. We got a little bit over for what
All good, all good. I love these.
I
I
normally
love
go
these.
to. Well, yeah, but this is great. I know I definitely enjoyed our conversation. I'm hoping that you will be, willing to, possibly, grace us with your presence again, because it has been an honor and definitely a pleasure. Thank you, Volcy, so much for being here and sharing your insights and your ideas, and you. I appreciate that so much, and thank you guys for tuning in. To the Roots Matter and actually listening to us. Before we get out of here, I'm going to share the platform one more time to Volcy. Volcy, if people want to, know you, even though I have like a lot of your links in the show notes below. Tell people where you can be found.
Oh yeah, I can be found on my channel Volcy Thoughts. Same thing on Instagram. Same thing on TikTok as well. Those and on Threads. Those are usually the platforms I'm on. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Threads. Cause I refuse to be on Muskland right now. Like
Mm.
I'll be checking every few months just to see what the foolery is. But
Yeah.
you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, um, Threads, and TikTok as well. That's where I do my debates. That's where I do my discussions. I like to have more discussions than I do debates. I like to
Mhm.
just talk to people, see what their mind is at, and try to get to a conclusion. Even if they don't agree with me and they don't change their mind, that's all good and well. I got new information. They got new information, and that's the point of what debates are supposed to be about. We need to take it back from the we need to take it back from from what it became. All right, and that's what I would like to do. So you can find me on all that. And Cynthia, I definitely appreciate you for having me on here. It was
Yes.
100% an honor to be here, and I would love to come back anytime you're having something else.
Yay. Great. Because I will be reaching out.
Definitely.
Okay. Guys, thank you again so much for watching. Just want to remind everyone in the chat right now, before you get out of here, make sure you are liking this video, subscribe to the Roots Matter, hit that bell so that every time that a new video is uploaded or the Roots Matter goes live, that you are notified and you can tune in. Also, if you like the content that you are receiving at this particular moment in time, you can also support this channel by going to www.patreon.com/camglamming. We are looking forward to having you all do that. And also, in 2 weeks, I want to say like on March 21st, we're going to have another panel discussion. to be determined who's going to be on that panel. I got a few people that said, yeah, maybe so, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to get that solidified for you guys so that, and then you'll be notified as the days and the weeks happen. But until then, as I always say to you all, my dear, wonderful viewers, stay grounded, stay hydrated,
Hydrated,
stay
y'all.
stay hydrated. That's important. Listen, I've been in the hospital because of dehydration. It's not pleasant, okay?
Mhm.
Stay aware and remember, at the end of the day, the roots matter. Take care, y'all. Bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.